First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for agreeing to speak on the occasion of my father's 90th birthday. And I would like to start by asking you whether you remember when and where you first met him.
Oh, well, we're going back into the 50s, and Nico came to do research in Cambridge on nationality, I think, which eventually appeared in his book on dual nationality. So, of course, he was being supervised by my father. I really didn't see much of him, but I was very aware of the fact that my mother was very intent on establishing a matrimonial relationship between Nico and her niece, Claire. And so I suppose she had them to the house together so as to introduce them. So they subsequently got married. And after that, they come regularly, and Claire is very hospitable and invites me round for meals and so on. I'm not very good at reciprocating, but it's always nice to know they're there. I was the counsel for Israel, and Nico was a member of a committee which oversaw what we were doing. And on that committee was not only Nico, but Shabtai Rosen, who alas has passed away, although he was 96 and working to the very end, most commendable. Anyway, so in the Tava case, there was this committee which vetted our written pleadings. There was one occasion when we met, when all the members were talking at once, and Shabtai Rosen called them to order and said, "Speak only when Eli asks you to do so." And after that, we were very disciplined. So Nico, I do recall that Nico's consideration of some of the drafts was very precise. He, more I think than any other member of the committee, took care to look at what was being done and to make comments. The oral hearings were before a tribunal consisting of the Swedish chap, Lagergren, and Ruth Lapidot, and who was the third one? I think it was an Egyptian. Yeah. Anyway, we came to the hearings in Geneva, and the exchanges between the two sides were perfectly amicable. Derek Byte appeared as the chief counsel for Egypt. And the time came for my final speech, and I remember sitting up all night to prepare it, and I did deliver it. I was awake to deliver it the next morning, and unfortunately Israel lost the case. Ruth Lapidot has very strong feelings about it, and rightly so. And anyway, that was what happened with Nico. But I think he's a remarkable person to not only be a good and active international lawyer, even now, but also a tennis player and a good family man. So I send him my warm greetings on this great occasion, and hope we shall live to celebrate bis 120. I hope that Nico will continue to have many years of good health and enjoy the happiness of Claire, and indeed also of his daughter and of his grandchildren. So Nico all the very best to you on this great occasion. Well, Nico, here we are, having enjoyed our conversation, and we want to take this opportunity to drink your health and wish you well and many happy and healthy years to come.
Nico,
L'chaim.
To Nico.
L'chaim. And can we do some Mazal Tov as well?
Yes, Mazal Tov. Exactly. Mazal Tov.
To Nico, Grant. Happy birthday.
Well, first of all, I'm so happy to be a tiny bit involved in your father's 90th. A lot of pleasure, Nico. I wish you everything good and congratulations on reaching your 90th, by all accounts, in very good form. We met, I believe, long years ago, and our friendship was from a long time ago, and then for the last 25 years or so our work lives have taken us in different paths, but old friends still remain fond of each other and still think about each other and appreciate each other. So I am especially glad to be doing this. And we met back at Chatham House, I believe, when you were a visiting fellow there, and I was at that time a staff member writing the first couple of my series of books on UN peacekeeping. And I think we, from the outset, liked each other well, and I always felt with you that you were someone I could talk to about Middle East matters without regard to the fact of where you came from. There were two people I felt this about. One was Boutros Ghali, who I'd met in The Hague a decade earlier, and when I was just beginning and he was only somewhat well known then, and we used to walk along the beach in the evenings talking about the problems and how they might ever be resolved. But it was never an Arab-British conversation, and with you it was never an Israeli-British conversation. It was a discussion between two good friends going over everything we could think about, and I so valued that and appreciated that, and I think that's exemplified your work over the years. It's been scholarly, it's been measured. You've never carried baggage, political baggage, in relation to your work. So I think you've done marvelous things.
I wonder if you would just maybe like to say something about his contribution to the field of international law.
Well, he's widely cited for a good reason, because this is someone who over the years has thought deeply and not made political points. I mean, international law is in a political context, we all know that, and international lawyers have to be political realists, but they should understand where lines are drawn. And for your father, it was always within the political context, the calm analysis of the law. And that's why he's been widely cited by myself and among others. And because he did so much over the years on the Middle East, where sadly the problems show no sign of resolution, nonetheless his contribution has been very, very real.
Thank you. In 1974, my father published The Handling of International Disputes by Means of Inquiry. And when I spoke to my father yesterday, he said on the phone, when I asked him, when he met you, he said, Rosalind published my book. So, and then he said, if you read the acknowledgements, he said, I'm sure she's mentioned there. So I read the acknowledgements, and I see you're mentioned twice. Once by the Royal Institute itself, and once by my father. And here it says, "The Institute gratefully acknowledges the comments and suggestions of the following who read the manuscript on behalf of the Research Committee," which I assume, you'll let me know, was appointed by the Royal Institute of International
Yes, there was a
Affairs.
standing research committee who would then go to specialists in the field to comment on particular projects that might be published.
So you were appointed,
Yes.
as well as Sidney Bailey, who was
Yes.
a great friend of both yourself and my father,
Yes.
and Professor Geoffrey Goodwin, who was Professor of International Relations at the LSE at
That's
the time.
right, that's right.
And then my father acknowledges in the very first paragraph of the book, both, he says, I'm very grateful to the Royal Institute of International Affairs for publishing the study under its distinguished auspices. The Institute's staff has been most kind and helpful in handling both academic and technical aspects of the publication. I am particularly indebted to Mr. James Fawcett and to Dr. Rosalind Higgins, who read the transcript and offered valuable suggestions. It was a great pleasure to exchange views with two scholars of such high standing.
Well, those, I had forgotten those lovely words, though obviously I'd not forgotten the book. And of course, James Fawcett was a distinguished scholar. He was on the commission, as it then was, which was then the important body in the Council of Europe for European Convention cases. And he was, during that period, I believe, if my memory serves me right, chairman of the Research Council. And that's why your father and James and I, we all saw a fair bit of each other in connection with this lovely book.
Yes, and Sidney Bailey.
And Sidney Bailey, of course, who's really a name to remember. One of two or three non-lawyers who understand international law inside out and backwards.
Yes. And he's greatly missed,
Yes.
I think. So I think this is, as I said, I think my father's tremendously indebted to you for your contribution.
Well, I mean, those seeking to write thoughtful works, we all rely on each other, don't we? I'm sure over the years I've been indebted for his calm, probing way of thinking, and we really aren't islands unto ourselves. We're all formed because of the contacts we've had, above all with friends whom we admire.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm fine. Nice to see you after all these years.
Yes, long time. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this little kind of chat for my dad's 90th birthday. It's very, very kind of you.
No, it's an honour. It's a great pleasure. Great pleasure to do it for him.
Great. Okay, especially on a Sunday, on a family day. So as I sort of, we've been chit-chatting ahead of this, I'm just wondering if you remembered where you first met and what, how your professional and personal relationship developed over the years.
Well, we first met in Switzerland. It would have been, I think, 1980 or 1981. And Judith and I had gone to Geneva. And I think we must have been put in touch by Ellie. I can't think of any other way how it might have happened. But anyway, we met up there and we got on very well. I remember that your dad was very naughty and bought himself a croque monsieur to eat.
Aha.
But I remember sitting on a table overlooking the fountain, Lake Geneva, and that was very nice. And he introduced me to Ros Higgins, who was there for the Human Rights Committee, although I had met Ros a year earlier at the American Society meeting, but this way I was able to develop a nice relationship in a more relaxed fashion. And since then, your dad and I have kept in contact down 35 years, and it broadened because Judith and your mother came into it, and we all became friends. We all got on well together. We met in Cambridge a few times, and pretty much always whenever we went to Israel, which has been increasingly now over the last 10 years or so. And it's always a great pleasure to see them.
Wonderful.
And, your father is in many ways untypically Israeli, because he's very modest, very self-effacing. He's not arrogant. He's not pushy. He's a decent man, and he's a lovely man to have as a friend and to talk to.
Well, thank you for those very kind words. I'm sure he'd appreciate them very much. As I mentioned to you, this is a surprise for him, this little, these sort of collection of clips that I'm trying to put together. So I'm sure he'll reciprocate in due course. I wonder whether you could share, I see in your last volume of your great work on international law that you've been citing him, and I'm just wondering if you could maybe shed some light about his contribution to international law, to the field.
Yes, happy to. His books, I think, although written many years ago, still have currency. They're still out there. I have copies of all of them, all three of them. The Armistice Agreement with Syria, which obviously is not quite as contemporary as it was before 1967 with regard to the Middle East, but armistice ceasefire agreements are something which exists all around the world now. So his book is still used. The other books on inquiries and on dual nationality are still out there and are still used. In fact, I used his book on dual nationality not that long ago with regards to a matter. So the name of Bar-Yaacov is still out there, and it's still influential.
Oh.
People still turn to his work.
Yes. It's interesting. You're the second person I'm interviewing who mentioned that they won. I don't know if you won the case, but another person I interviewed mentioned it was Bougie Herzog, who's currently the leader of the opposition in Israel, mentioned that his father, when working as a lawyer, used the dual nationality book and won quite a big case. So I was quite surprised to hear that, because so it's good to know that he's still, this was obviously many years ago, it's good to know that his book is still very much in use and up there. Last but not least, I wondered if you would maybe like to just wish him, it is his 90th birthday. It's quite an important landmark. Any greetings, anything you would like to wish?
Absolutely. Nico, it's an absolute delight to wish you a very happy 90th year. It's been a great honour and a privilege and a joy for Judith and I to know you, and of course Claire, down all the years. We're back in Israel in November, and we shall see you there. Wow. So, l'chaim.
L'chaim. I also have my l'chaim. Okay, great. Wonderful, Malcolm. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning to you, Nomi. It's a great pleasure to be able to make a short broadcast for this illustrious occasion. As far as I can remember, I first met your father, I first met him intellectually through reading his works on humanitarian law when I was a young academic in the early 1980s. But I think the first time we met in person was when you were an undergraduate at Cambridge and he was visiting here. And we certainly met when I was at a conference on terrorism in Tel Aviv in December 1988. But you were at that conference as well. I remember the two of you both came.
That is correct. Yes, we were indeed. And I do as well remember very well that you had attended. I, of course, remember all your lectures as a student at that time, which I enjoyed tremendously. So the next question I wanted to ask you was about my father's contribution to international law, whether you have any comment on that.
Well, your father's made an enormous contribution to international law, and it's one which I think all of us who work in the field relish. I particularly single out what he's written on humanitarian law because that was the field that interested me most. But for example, his work on the Fourth Geneva Convention, on questions of competent status, and I think it's fair to say it's never easy for somebody who comes from the Middle East to write in that particular area. One of the things that's always struck me about your father's writing is how scrupulous he has always been about being impartial and rigorous in his research and not trying to advance a political case in what he writes. And that's all too rare these days.
Thank you, Chris. And last but not least, it is his 90th birthday on the 21st of April, and I wondered whether you would like to say something about that.
Yes, I'd like to wish him a very happy birthday indeed, to say that he has given me something to live for in the hope that if I survive to 90, I will be as sprightly, both physically and intellectually, as he is. Now, Nico, my very best wishes to you for your birthday, and I hope you and your family enjoy the celebration very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Chris.
ניקו היקר, אני לא סתם, אתה יודע, פוליטיקאי, אני קודם כל קרוב משפחה, ומבחינתי אתה נוף ילדותי ונוף חיי. אתה וקלר, כל משפחת שטיינברג, אמבש וסטון-היל לדורותיה, מדבר אליי מאוד. אני עוד זוכר את הספר שלך על דואל נשיונליטי, משרת את אבא, חיים הרצוג, בעתירה לבית המשפט העליון של הליידי קוקרן, עתירה שבה הוא ניצח ניצחון מוחץ, והוכיח שדואל נשיונליטי, על פי הספר שלך, זאת התפיסה, ואני חושב שזו גם התפיסה בבסיס הדוקטורט שלך. ואחרי זה תמיד בכל האירועים המשפחתיים, מסביר פנים, נחמד, מחייך, מדבר איתנו בהרבה אהבה, מגיעים תמיד לכל האירועים שלנו בשמחה ובעצב. מבחינתי, מבחינת כל הדור שלי במשפחה, אתה איזה דוד גדול וחשוב, שאני מאוד מאוד שמח שיש לי קשר כבר עם הדור הבא ועם המשפחה שלך ועם נומי היקרה. לאחל לכולכם באמת רק מזל טוב ובשורות טובות, אריכות ימים ובריאות טובה, ומי ייתן שתמשיך עוד לתרום את תרומתך בכל אחד מהתחומים שחשובים לנו.
Hello Nico, this is Fabian Hamilton. We met twice, I think. Once when you and your wife came to tea here in the House of Commons, and the second time when you kindly entertained me in Jerusalem in your home. So I'm really just wishing you a happy 90th birthday and many, many happy returns. It's lovely to be able to greet you in this way. And as you know, your daughter is a really good friend of mine. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Happy 90th birthday.
ניקו, אני רוצה לברך אותך ליום הולדתך ה-90, כל משפחת בנט המורחבת. אני זוכר מגיל מאוד צעיר שבאתם לבקר אותנו בקיבוץ לעתים קרובות, והייתם מאוד מאוד יקרים וחשובים למשפחתי, בעיקר לאבא ואמא, שמאוד שמחו כל פעם שבאתם לבקר, והקשר נשמר לאורך המון שנים. אני שמח גם שהקשר נשמר גם בדור הבא, ואני מאחל לך עוד המון שנים של כיף מהמשפחה, מהילדים, ורק טוב.
אמירה. אז אנחנו במרכז הטניס. אבא ושמוליק.
אנחנו מאוד מעריצים אותו מסיבות רבות. קודם כל הצניעות, שנית האצילות, זה משהו מיוחד במינו. ושלישית, תמיד מספר לי מוקי איך היית מומחה בעניין הזה של הגבול שלנו בטאבה, עם המצרים.
נכון.
אז יש עוד כבוד אחד של באמת, גם מירה, יש פה חניכה שלו באוניברסיטה. אשתו של אהוד. אז תכף נראה אותה ונמשיך.
אנחנו מכירים הרבה שנים. התחלנו באוניברסיטה, בגבעת רם, ובמיקי, אני עם יובל, שיחקנו טניס. הרבה שנים. לא רק זה, לגבי טניס, אני הוזמנתי על ידי ניקו להשתתף בתחרויות של הפקולטה, מדעי החברה זה היה. יש לנו גביעים, לא גביעות, גביעים, נכון? אני בעצמי אומר גביעות, גביעים. ואנחנו ממשיכים קשר. אנחנו מחבבים אותו.
למה אתם מחבבים?
דגם לחיקוי. דגם לחיקוי. הלוואי שנגיע כולנו על מגרש הטניס בצלולים כמוני.
טוב. זו מירה.
זו מירה.
מירה הייתה סטודנטית של אבא.
נכון, ליכבל בשנת 61.
אליעזר אמר שאמרת שהוא היה חתיך, זה נכון?
אני לא אמרתי לפניו, היא סיפרה לי.
הוא היה חתיך, הוא היה לבוש תמיד
הוא גם עכשיו חתיך בעיניי.
אירופאי.
הוא היה לבוש...
מה זה היה חתיך?
בצורה שאף אחד לא התלבש כמוהו. הוא היה בחליפה, הוא היה הולך בצעדים מדודים על הקתדרה, לאט לאט, זקוף. וחתיך אלוהי.
אלוהי.
זהו.
והמורה טוב.
ויותר מאוחר. והיה מרצה מצוין, אין מה לומר, והגיש את החומר בצורה נהדרת, ולימים פגשתי אותו במגרש הטניס.
את רוצה לאחל לו משהו לכבוד יום ההולדת ה-90 שלו?
הרבה אושר, הרבה אהבה, הרבה בריאות, שזה הכי חשוב, וחיים ארוכים.
תודה מירה. תודה מירה. טוב, אבא.